The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, so a very good morning to you from a rather gloomy Berlin, where we were here for Cisco Live this week. So if you're attending, we hope to catch up with you at some point during the week. My name is Simon Thompson. I'm also joined in the room by my trusty colleague, Joe Aronow, and we're both very excited to be bringing you today's four-course launch. And this is our first launch of 2016 in what promises to be a pretty exciting year. So let's have a look at the agenda. It's a fairly straightforward one, and we shouldn't need to keep you for too long today. This session, I've run this a few times now, and it typically runs about 30 to 40 minutes. So we should be able to give you a few minutes back during this hour. But we'll be covering something from all four product lines, which is why we've called it the four-course launch. And let's get straight into the detail. First of all, we're going to start off with a quick look at Meraki in 2016. And really, what I want to do here, just to step back for a moment, one thing I forgot to mention, we do have the option for you to ask questions during the webinar. So over on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll find a tool that you can use to ask a question at any time whilst either myself or Joe are presenting. And we'll do our best to get those questions answered for you as quickly as we can. And what we'll do is a quick Q&A section at the end, and that'll give us a chance to share some of the more popular questions with everybody who's attending. Okay, so back to the detail. Meraki in 2016. Well, really, right at this point in time, we are very much starting to take Meraki into larger and larger opportunities. So once, when Meraki was first acquired by Cisco back in 2012, we were largely positioned as a mid-market solution. But what we found is that larger and larger customers have been coming to us and really just loving what we have to offer and seeing how it can benefit them. If it's not in all of their business, then certainly in some parts of their business, often in branch sites, for example, where multi-site deployments are really can benefit from a simpler approach to network management. So this is very much a focus for us at the moment, is building out a product set which is suitable for these larger scale deployments. And you'll see that a couple of the products in today's announcement really are focused in that particular area. And if you were paying attention towards the end of last year, you probably would have also seen our introduction of stackable switches. That's obviously a big move forward for us. And also the slightly larger, more powerful branch security appliance, the MX84. Something else which remains an absolute point of focus for Meraki, we think of it really as our North Star to which we're always aiming, and that is our relentless focus on simplification. For us, this is the secret of our success. We have deliberately tried to strip away the extraneous features that we know customers typically don't use and really hone in and focus on getting the management experience right for the features which you use on a day-to-day basis. Also for us, we are making continued investment in network and endpoint integration. So what we mean by this is we're really referencing here our mobile device management software, Systems Manager, and the fact that we have some really nice integration there between the MDM side, that's managing the endpoints directly, the actual devices and what's running on them, together with the network infrastructure. So the ability, for example, to integrate security policies on a device with network infrastructure settings. So for example, we need you to have a passcode on your device. If you don't have one, then we're going to put a firewall block on the network to impact your experience. So that kind of integration is really important for us. And in fact, that leads us on to the first session, the first product that we want to talk about today, which is Systems Manager. And to this, I'm going to hand over to Joe, who is going to take us through that section and also the security appliance, and I will be back a little bit later on.
Thanks, Simon. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, evening, time zone of your choice. My name is Joe Aronow, as Simon mentioned. I'm on the product marketing team as well. And there's a couple of products and new features as well that I'd like to talk to you about today. I will be handing back to Simon in a little bit. We're going to kind of trade off so that we don't have to spend all of our time talking. We can both answer some of your questions as well. But I want to start by talking about some new and exciting features and functionality that we built into the Systems Manager MDM product. So for those of you who are familiar with the Systems Manager MDM, which is hopefully all of you, it's a very powerful kind of endpoint security and endpoint management feature suite that we've built into this consolidated MDM agent, right? And it's available across a variety of platforms. It's got a ton of functionality, and we've got some new stuff that we want to talk about today that we've added to the Systems Manager portfolio. So the first thing that I want to highlight is some improved OS X functionality for Mac devices. We've got, historically, we've always had a really strong MDM feature set around iOS, right, around iPhones, iPads, because the iOS operating system is built with a heavy MDM integration focus. So there's a lot of kind of hooks and APIs for us to leverage that allow us to do a lot of really cool things when it comes to iOS. Recently, Apple's been doing a lot of work to bring that same kind of integration capability into OS X as well, to bring that beyond just mobile devices and tablets and phones and into MacBooks and iMacs and other Apple products. So what we have is a whole new set of OS X controls through Systems Manager, 35 new preferences that can be enforced through Systems Manager, as well as mandatory disk encryption with the file vault capability. So really bringing a lot of the same functionality that we have today on iOS to macOS, and security and disk encryption capabilities that are really crucial for the enterprise use case, especially for things like any kind of, confidential material or highly sensitive material that's kept on employee devices that you're managing through this platform. The really nice thing about that encrypted file vault functionality is that we've made it incredibly simple to deploy and manage. This can be a very complex thing in a lot of deployments, trying to maintain your data privacy, maintain your encryption standards across a variety of platforms, across a variety of users, some of whom are more tech savvy than others, some of whom follow directions better than others, et cetera, et cetera. So what we've done here is try to make this as simple as humanly possible, right? Using that kind of North Star that Simon talked about of let's try to really focus all of our attention on simplifying these network management tasks and IT management tasks. So what you see here on this slide on the left, this is the file vault configuration. That's it. It's really very, very simple. All you have to do is turn it on, select the kind of recovery key you want, and you have a couple of options here as well around recovering your certificate, or creating a recovery certificate as well that can be used in conjunction with the recovery key. So the beauty of this is you turn it on with just that single click. You have a variety of options around recovering the data. If you should need to for any reason, you can either use an institutional key, which is an organization-wide identifier. You can use a personal key for that individual user, or you can use a combination of both, which is arguably the most secure method and the one that I personally recommend. The beauty of this, beyond just the simplicity, is that you can't lose those keys. They're held in the cloud, and they're unique, obviously, to your deployment, to your organization. For the individual ones, they're unique to individual users, but they're always there in the cloud, and that means that you don't ever have to worry about losing those keys. In the kind of traditional fashion with Systems Manager, you can also deploy these file vault settings based on tags, based on labels. So a variety of different descriptors for your devices that you can use to apply these settings to some devices and not others. So this file vault setting can be applied to certain operating systems, or sorry, not operating systems, certain types of devices. It can be applied to certain geographic locations. It can be applied to certain users, right? There are a variety of different ways. It can even be time-based or geolocation-based. All the options that you have today for how to differentiate your policy application with Systems Manager can be used for this file vault configuration. And that's a very, very powerful thing to have, to be able to really identify exactly which machines in your deployment need this and be able to deploy it to those machines very easily and very quickly. Another cool new functionality, this time on the iOS side, is wallpaper control. So we've added a few things around this. There's a new section in Dashboard that allows you to actually drag and drop images for lock and home screens onto iOS devices. So you can customize those, and you can say, okay, I want a particular lock screen image, a particular home screen image. You can also change them. You can say, again, based on all these different tag-based characteristics, things like what time it is, what location is the device in, who's using the device, is it in security compliance, what type of device is it, all these different things. You can use those bits of data to alter that wallpaper, or alter that lock screen, and ensure that it provides whatever information or shows whatever you want to show at any given time. So this could be used for a variety of purposes, whether it's just instructional information. You have, let's say, an educational institution that wants to provide some information on how to use an iOS device, how to use these iPads to students. So when they pick it up, the lock screen shows them, right, a set of information about, what are they allowed to do with these devices, how should they use them, how can they use them, how can they connect to the various services that they need to connect to. You can also use it for branding in a retail environment, right? So if you go into a location that's using, let's say, iPads to show off some product or feature, you can in turn have the lock screens and home screens on those devices branded in a way that allows you to provide the best kind of retail experience for customers. There are a bunch of different ways you can use this. I'm just bringing up a couple, but I really want to highlight the flexibility of this, because it's not just about setting an image that's pretty or something like that. There's a ton of different functional ways to use this depending on what your goals are and what your IT needs are. Another new and exciting MDM update, pretty powerful, and this is probably my favorite functionality that we've added in the new update, is we now have integration capabilities with Android for Work. Android for Work is a suite of sort of enterprise functionality built into the Android operating system that allows you to do things like containerize applications, push down a variety of application settings. It's basically just designed to make Android management for both Android phones and tablets much more flexible and fit better into the enterprise. So it really brings the Android ecosystem up closer to, and even on par with, what traditionally we've had from Apple, which is, again, this focus around very flexible MDM integration. And that's something that Android has always sort of fallen a little bit behind on, partially just because there are so many Android operating systems out there in the world that are in use, so many different types of Android devices. It's not nearly as kind of a singular ecosystem as Apple's is. But now with Android for Work, we've got that same kind of enterprise functionality, and there's a variety of things you can do with that. One is security, obviously, one of the key components of Systems Manager. You can enforce a variety of security policies, of restrictions to these devices through Android for Work. And you can also kind of identify to the user where these settings are coming from. So it's very clear, okay, this is a company-owned device, or this is a personal device that's been marked as a company-sensitive data device, or whatever it is, and therefore it's got some Android for Work profile. And that means that it's useful for either a fleet deployment where you own the device, or for a BYOD deployment. So you can have these settings apply to a device that is owned by the user, but they may be using it in your location or using it for company data, and that means you want to manage it. There's actually something really, really powerful that Android for Work allows you to do in that BYOD space, and that's containerization. Containerization is a really cool concept around kind of isolating or separating business data or organizational data from personal data. And it has a lot of functionality designed to really execute on that concept of making sure you have your personal device, you have your kind of organization-owned device, and they're the same device, but you almost got two virtual tablets or two virtual phones. And the way that that's done is by having separate app stores, right? By having, let's say, the same app installed multiple times. So you could have the same app installed twice, and one of them is the organization, let's say the business version of the app. And it's got an entirely different set of settings, and that same exact app installed in the personal container where the user can go and use it for their personal purposes. So let's say they're a member of the marketing department, and they've got the Facebook app or the Twitter app on there for both personal purposes, because it's their device, and they've got the business one that's tied to the social media or social marketing account for the organization. You've also got enforcement of encryption, which is, of course, crucial for private data or company data. And you've got the ability to do a selective wipe, similar to what we've had in iOS for some time now, where you can just remove the data that's relevant to the organization. So you can take all of the business information, all the business data, apps, backpack information, anything else off that device, completely wipe all the kind of sensitive data off it, and leave all the user's personal data, personal apps, anything else they want on there. So if they, let's say, leave the organization or they don't want to use this device for business purposes anymore, you can very easily pull that integration out without removing or damaging any of their personal data. Finally, the last thing that I want to talk about for MDM is that we've also added some new Windows 10 capabilities. So Windows 10 MDM support was kind of a big flagship feature of the operating system, but unfortunately the early revisions of Windows 10 didn't work quite as well as kind of was hoped for MDM. Microsoft's done a great job of going in and fixing some of the stuff that caused that, and now we have a much tighter integration into networking capabilities for Windows 10. So whereas Wi-Fi and VPN profile deployment was previously only supported on Apple devices and Android devices, it's now also supported on Windows devices with the new Windows 10 capabilities. So you can configure Wi-Fi profiles, VPN profiles, again, based on tags, as part of a broader security or posture profile in Systems Manager, and then deploy it to those Windows devices the same way you would deploy it to the other devices that were previously supported. So with that, I'm going to pivot a little bit, and we're going to talk about the security appliances. So if you have any questions about the stuff we've covered in MDM, please feel free to ask in the Q&A window. Simon's keeping a close eye on that. I'll be jumping back on it when I hand the ball back over to him in a few minutes. But for now, we're going to talk about the MX. I'm a little bit biased. This is actually the product that I work on. It's my personal favorite, which is probably to be expected under the circumstances. But I'm really excited to tell you about what we've been doing recently with the MX. So let's get right into it. We have two new products on the MX line, the MX65 and MX65W. The 65W has built-in 802.11ac wireless, quite high speed. I actually have been using this for some time. I was part of the beta test group as well. The AC wireless is phenomenal performance. I've been very, very happy with it. It's got 250 megabits per second of firewall throughput. That number drops to about 200 megabits per second with all security features turned on, so not a drastic decrease, even when you turn on all that UTM functionality. And it's got the same built-in UTM, or Unified Threat Management capabilities, that have made the other MX products so successful, where it's got built-in source fire intrusion prevention, built-in malware scanning, built-in URL content filtering by category or by URL hostname, layer 7 firewall, GeoIP firewalling, all these capabilities. Of course, our Meraki Auto VPN, which is arguably the single best feature of the MX product line. All this built into this very, very kind of portable, slim form factor. And we've also got the addition of 802.1x port security on the wired ports as well. So the one thing that some of you who are more familiar with the MX line, or hopefully most of you are thinking, is this sounds an awful lot like a product that you saw us release not long ago, the MX64. Well, here's why it's not. If you flip that bad boy around, you're going to see that the back of the MX65 is pretty drastically different from the MX64. And there's a few reasons. First of all, we've got two dedicated internet or WAN ports. So whereas with the 64 and the 60, even before that, you had a single dedicated uplink, and then you had a series of LAN ports, one of which could be repurposed as an internet port. You now have two dedicated WAN ports. And the main reason for this, there's, I guess, two reasons really. One is just to simplify deployment. We don't want you to have to deal with the software kind of step of having to go in and designate one of the LAN ports as a WAN port. We feel it's really much simpler. It's much easier for you or for the partner who's deploying it or whoever it may be to just say, okay, here's Internet 1, here's Internet 2. If we've got two links, let's just drop them right into there. Nice and easy. Removes one of the steps, removes potentially some confusion and some complexity, which is great. The other reason we did this was to really fit in nicely with the IWAN functionality that some of you have probably heard us talk about. IWAN is currently in open beta. It's been around for a little bit now in that kind of beta form. And what it allows you to do is really get the most out of multiple WAN uplinks on an MX. So if you have, let's say, two internet uplinks, a primary and a backup, or you have a direct internet uplink and an MPLS uplink, we want to make sure that you can really leverage those to their full capability, so you're not paying money for a link that you're not utilizing to the extent that you could be. It allows you to do things like VPN load balancing, or even performance-based path decision, so what we're calling dynamic path selection, where let's say voice over IP traffic is sent over the MPLS unless some performance threshold is exceeded, right? The latency goes higher, the jitter goes higher, the loss goes higher than you want it to, or some combination thereof, and then you can dynamically, right, automatically fail that traffic over to a higher performance path. So that's the other reason why we've got the 2 WAN ports built into this product. Of course, probably the first thing that anyone noticed is there's just a lot more ports on this thing than on the 64 or the 60. And we've got a total of 12 here between the 2 dedicated WAN ports and the 10 LAN ports. I'll get to the last 2 in just a second. And again, the reason for this is primarily around that simplicity of deployment. We don't want you to have to kind of scrimp and scrounge to try to figure out how do we connect our branch or our store location or whatever it is in such a way that we only need 3 or 4 LAN ports on our firewall. We don't want you to have to worry about that. We want you to be able to say, okay, we've got however many, 7 devices. They all need to be connected out. We don't want to spend extra money or spend extra time or add extra complexity to the architecture by including a small distributor switch that's really just there because there aren't enough ports on the MX. We want to remove all that hassle for you and make sure that you can drop this in and really have it be the all-in-one edge firewall. And so that's why we've added the extra ports here. It's also why we've added the last kind of physical change here, 2 PoE plus ports on the far right. So if you look very closely, and I don't know if it comes through well enough for you to see it, but next to the port numbers on ports 11 and 12, you've got these little lightning bolts, and that indicates that they're PoE capable. So each of those ports is PoE plus. They're capable of a full 30 watts of power each for a total of 60 across the 2 ports. So you can power 2 devices straight off of the MX. And that means it could be an access point, it could be a camera, it could be an IP phone, whatever powered device you need to run in that store. If you've got 1 or 2 of them, you can plug them straight in here and we'll power it straight off the firewall. Again, removing the need for something like a PoE injector or a dumb PoE switch that you've just thrown in there because you didn't have that capability in the firewall. Well, you now do. So again, just reducing the complexity of the architecture, meaning that you really can just have this one box covering all of those networking needs. The final thing that is not necessarily obvious just from looking at this, but I do want to highlight, is that we've also done a couple things on the Wi-Fi side. So for the 65W specifically that has the integrated AC Wi-Fi, we've got custom antenna design and a newer revision of the wireless chipset that allows for greater wireless range and generally higher wireless performance than we saw in the 64W. So that's a great addition as well. So with that, I'm going to, one question I want to answer before we move on. Someone who's very astute here and is familiar with the previous MX models wants to know where the USB port is on this guy. If you were watching very carefully, you might have noticed a couple of slides ago that we've actually moved the USB port over onto the side of the unit, along with the reset pinhole button. And of course, the reason for this is because we needed to make room for all these ports on the back. So one really cool thing about the 65 is it's actually less than an inch wider than the MX64. It's the same height, it's the same depth, and it's somewhere between 1/3 of an inch and 1/2 an inch wider. So it's really very similar in form factor, and in order to add all this extra functionality, more ports, PoE, right, better wireless, all of this, we really haven't changed the form factor. It's still that very lightweight, very thin, kind of sleek design that's easily portable for teleworker or easy to kind of fit in anywhere you need it in a location. All right, so with that, this time I'm actually going to pass it along to Simon, and he's going to take it away with a switching update. So give me just one moment to pass things back to him.
Okay. Should be good now. So let's proceed with an update to the switching. Thank you very much for those parts, Joe. And don't forget that Joe's still standing by and able to take questions for you if you have any related to what we've looked at so far or what's about to come up. So let's get into the switching. And in fact, what we're doing here is we're looking at the switching product that we're announcing. It's actually a brand new aggregation switch. So we're welcoming 2 new switches to the Meraki family, and we're calling these MS410. And as you can see from the picture, this is a bit of a clue here. This is an fiber aggregation switch. So it's not a copper switch. This is one that's deliberately designed for fiber extension and for aggregation purposes. So the reasoning behind this, we've actually had already a very powerful aggregation switch in our family, the MS420, and that's actually a 10 gig SFP plus aggregator. So it comes with 24 or 48 SFP plus interfaces and very high level of throughput, up to about a terabit per second of throughput on that device. So that really is a premium data center switch offering from Meraki. However, I think it's fair to say that that is not the most inexpensive switch in the world and is really aimed at those real premium deployments, data center style, and customers who need that level of throughput. 10 gig SFP plus aggregation is quite a very specific high performance environment for the enterprise. We had quite a few customers come to us and say, well, really our focus is more around simply being able to aggregate our fiber uplinks. So we've got a lot of customers out there running Meraki layer 2 switches, which have 1 gig SFP connections. And so we thought it would be a very good idea to get this model out into the marketplace, giving them an option for, at a much lower price point, a 1 gig SFP plus interface aggregator. So that's what the MS410 is all about. It comes in 16 and 32 port configurations and also has 10 gig SFP plus uplinks for connection onto the wide area network or to the core of your switching network environment. So this is an interesting switch in that it is a physically stackable one. So the MS420 is not a switch that has physical stacking built in. However, we've taken advantage of new updates in our own technology to bring physical stacking to this family, which is going to open up some interesting new opportunities in terms of redundant network configurations, because you're going to be able to now create what we call cross-stack link aggregation connections between the access layer and the aggregation layer that we're focusing on here. So that stacking is very similar to what we introduced on the MS350 line back in November, and it's going to be giving you around 160 gigs per second of stacking bandwidth. So that is a very high performance stacking environment to make use of. And this switch is also capable of layer 3 options where that's required. So that's things like dynamic routing with OSPF, also VRRP style functionality. And this device also comes with hot swappable, field replaceable fans and power supplies. So available now, as is everything else that we're announcing today. We also have a range of accessories. Those of you who know the switching line, there's a lot of familiarity here. The 410 does not ship with a stacking cable in the box. So if you do want to create those redundant pairs or maybe even a broader range of aggregation switches, up to 8 you can go, then you'll need to purchase the stacking cables to enable that. We also have a selection of SFP and SFP plus interfaces to purchase, and also direct twin-ax cables, 1 meter or 3 meter. And customers are not really forced to use those SFPs. Obviously, we'd love you to purchase those from us, but you can use any SFP or SFP plus that you have in place. We'll still continue to support the switch. And as I said, these are hot swappable power supplies. The device comes with a single 250 watt power supply. You can buy an additional one for power redundancy if that's required. So this is how the aggregation family now looks. We have the new 410, the affordable 1 gig fiber distribution or aggregation layer switch. So this is perfect for large branch or small campus deployments. And I think any customers who've already got, say, the MS22, the old model, or the MS220, those are our layer 2 offerings, this is going to be perfect for that. And don't forget that this is a physically stackable switch, so that does open up new highly redundant architectures. There's one nice little extra to be able to announce on the MS420 if you're an existing customer there. We are taking advantage of the stacking software that we've written for the 410, and we're integrating that into the 420 as well. So whilst the 420 does not have its own dedicated physical stacking ports like the new 410 does, we can still build a logical stack connecting switches together using the front-facing 10 gig SFP plus ports. And of course, you can go up to 8 of these in a link aggregation group, and that gives you a potential for 80 gigs of throughput there. So that's a nice little extra, and I think it also underlines the way in which at Meraki we always try to add more functionality to the hardware that we're already shipping out to customers. All right, so last on the agenda today, we have an update to announce on the wireless side of things. So let's talk AC. And I have great news for you all. We are very happy to be announcing a brand new AC power adapter, the MA-PWR-30W-XX. So this has worldwide compatibility. You can use it both here in Europe, but also over in the United States or North America if you wish to. And it comes complete with an embossed Cisco logo. We think this is a really nice development, a new feature for us. Previous PowerBreak did not have that embossed logo, so that's a definite feature addition there. Comes with a 1.5 meter cord, and that is included with the power supply, and 30 watts of 12-volt power supplied there. We're very proud of the pricing on this, coming in at just 97 cents per watt, and that is available today. But seriously, folks, obviously I have a little bit more to share with you today, and we're going to talk about 802.11 AC. Those of you who've been following wireless standards will know we've had AC in place now for, I think it's been a standard since 2013, but it was in place even before that. So we have been working with AC for a while now, and Meraki has already 3 802.11 AC access points in its offering. These are Wave 1 access points, and Wave 1 really brings us the bulk of the benefits that 802.11 AC has added for us. Certainly a significant improvement over the previous 802.11n standard. As we move into Wave 2, there's been a lot of talk and hype about Wave 2. There are really two fundamental additions to the 11AC standard that Wave 2 brings us. First of those is the option for 160 megahertz wide channels. So with the addition of AC, we've finally got 80 megahertz wide channels. This gave us the opportunity to provide quite a lot of data in one go to a single device. We're able to go even further with that, with these doubling of channel width with 11AC. However, those of you who know your Wi-Fi will immediately recognize that we have a problem here. You can really max out your channel reuse at simply 2 channels. You can really not squeeze in any more than 2 channels using 160 megahertz wide channels there. So that is obviously a challenge. It doesn't really make that benefit useful for enterprise deployments. This is going to be more for a single access point, maybe a couple of APs, certainly not really an enterprise feature. The one we're more interested in with Wave 2 is multi-user MIMO, and that is something which we are very happy to be announcing today for the Meraki line. So if you're not familiar with Wi-Fi, maybe you don't work on it all the time, or these terms are new to you, let's just quickly explain. And this is a really simplified slide just explaining the difference between single-user MIMO, which is what we've had up till today, and now multi-user MIMO. Wi-Fi is a shared resource, and this is a very important one because so many people still ask us the question, how many clients can we connect to an access point? The reality is you can connect well over 100 clients without any difficulty to a single AP, but because it's a shared resource, you're only going to be able to communicate with one device at any one time, and you're also obviously sharing the bandwidth that's available there. So that's really the limiting factor rather than the number of clients we can connect. However, multi-user MIMO does move us forward because now we can take advantage of the multiple antennas and spatial streams within these APs to enable us to communicate with more than one device at a single time. And that's what we mean by multi-user MIMO. So the end result of this is increased network efficiency for personal mobile devices in particular. And it's really those mobile devices where we get high densities of those where we're going to see an advantage by deploying Wave 2 access points. So for support of this new standard, we're introducing a brand new flagship access point, the MR42. So this is our first 11AC Wave 2 access point. This comes with a 3x3 antenna configuration with 3 spatial streams and has support for multi-user MIMO functionality. As our customers have come to expect, we also don't stop with simply providing radios to support Wi-Fi clients. We also have a dedicated built-in third radio used for wireless security and also location analytics information tracking. And then we also have a fourth radio. This is the Bluetooth low energy radio that enables us to use beacon technology to integrate with applications that support that, and a really nice capability, particularly for retail deployments, or anywhere where you want to be able to track Bluetooth beacons and devices. This is a PoE Plus wireless access point. We can use it on the 802.3 AF power standard. However, we do experience a reduction in throughput and also lose that dedicated third radio there. But really, all of the devices, including the MX65 that Joe talked about earlier, support the newer PoE Plus standard 802.3 AT, and that is going to give us full capability on this access point. This one is coming in at a very competitive price, and those of you who've been watching Meraki pricing, you'll see that's a $300 reduction on the previous flagship, the MR34. So we think this is going to be a very popular access point for us, and really is setting the standard for Wave 2 wireless with the Meraki management approach. So here's the new AP lineup for spring 2016, and we start with our last remaining 802.11n access point. Still a popular seller because there are plenty of customers out there who really focus on connectivity above all else. They're not too concerned about the performance levels that the AC standard brings them. So the MR18 is a really effective price point, really the most cost-effective way to get into Meraki wireless. We then have a range of 11 AC access points, the 32, 34, and 42. 42 now really makes best sense for future-focused deployments. You're looking for the very latest and best technology from Meraki. And then on the outdoor AP side of things, we have still the 62, that's the BGN access point. Then we have a dual radio MR66, and finally the 11 AC outdoor AP, that's the MR72. So MR42 is now available, ready to ship. And we're also going to be announcing the end of sale for our MR26. That was our previous 11N model that we had in the family for high density deployments. And so not yet actually end of sale, but we'll be announcing that coming up very soon in May, in the May timeframe. Okay, so that is all of the material that we needed to cover today. That's our 4-course launch completed. So I just want to quickly remind you of ways in which you can keep in touch with us. We have a very active blog, which is really the best way to keep up with what Meraki is doing. We announce everything on the blog first, and of course, those of you who are following us will already have seen a lot of this detail in our announcement back on the 9th of February. However, this is the place to go. If you want to keep up, just please go to that website and subscribe on there. And then as far as keeping in touch with us in real time is concerned, we are active on Twitter. You'll also find us on a public community, which is now growing quite rapidly. We're well over 1,000 users on there now. It's a great place to go in and talk about your Meraki deployments and any technology questions you may have related to what we are doing at Meraki. Okay, so thank you very much indeed for your time and attention. I'm going to spend just a few moments having a look at some of the questions that have come in so we can share a few of these with you, and then we'll let you get back to your day. So bear with me while I have a quick look at the questions that have come in, and please take this opportunity if you haven't asked already to do so. Okay, so a very good question here, which we definitely need to cover around the wireless on the MX65W. So this is a question we often get asked about whether we can integrate that with the MR family. So let's just clarify how this works. The MX65W and all of the MXW models are designed to provide wireless at a relatively simple level for relatively simple deployments. So when you need to just provide some Wi-Fi coverage in the vicinity of that device, then 65W works perfectly there. However, if you do think that you're going to need to expand beyond the reach of a single access point, then really you want to be thinking about the MR family and going for a proper wireless deployment there, including a site survey. So there is no meshing capability between the MXW line and the MR product line. That's a very important consideration right at the start. Don't forget that there is also the MX65, the non-wireless variant. We showed you the one with antennas, but there's also a non-wireless one, which obviously comes in at a slightly lower price point and is going to be the sensible platform to begin your build out, including the MR wireless. Got several questions here about the material. There is all of this material is shared through various different channels. Certainly, we've shared it with our partners, which is a good place where you can download this the slides if you want to see those. But don't forget that our blog also has all of this detail as well. So we've actually did a nice extensive blog post on the 9th of February, so that would be a good place to go to get a recap on what we're announcing today. Okay, so just having a look through here. There's a question here about when MX65 is available in the Netherlands. In fact, we are shipping all of these products worldwide at this time. So you should have no problem at all getting hold of these regardless of which country you're communicating with us from today. So please just reach out to your Meraki rep. They should know about this already and be able to get you set up. We had a question about power on the MX65W. So as Joe pointed out during his slot, we do support dual concurrent PoE Plus connections into the MX65. And so that means effectively up to 30 watts per port, so a total of 60 together, and that's going to enable you to power all kinds of devices, security cameras, even VDI terminals. Some of those run inside that power platform as well. So really nice capability to have added in there. And of course, if you need to extend your switching beyond what the extensive port range is on the 65, then we have our switching line to introduce you to. Okay, we had a question about which version of iOS is required for the new features we're talking about on Systems Manager. That's actually iOS 9. So these are functions which Apple is opening up to us through their API that they have. So that's always with Apple, as you know, tied to the latest and greatest. So iOS 9 for those new features. And we did also have a question about the Systems Manager features that we're adding here. And just to clarify, we do have a version of Systems Manager which we used to offer completely free of charge, and we have a lot of customers who are still using that. The good news for those customers is that they are still protected because we have no plans to shut down that free version that was in place. However, it was frozen to new entrants a little while ago. So new customers are going to benefit from the opportunity to trial up to 100 users with all the features turned on, but they also get support built in, and that is a licensed product offering. Okay, so another question about I think related to the wireless on the MX65W. That wireless capability is designed for indoor use only. So if you do need to go to outdoor APs, as I mentioned a moment ago, you might be better off going with the 65 and then going for dedicated MR access points. There we have a family of APs, as you saw a moment ago, and you can then go for indoor and outdoor deployments and even have those meshing and working together. Great question here about upgrading access points. And so the good news with Meraki is that when you've purchased a license for using on a particular AP, you can transfer those licenses across to a new model. So if you do decide to upgrade to get the latest standard, then you can do so simply by purchasing the hardware itself. Your license will be transferable. You can continue operating with that. So that's a nice way to go. Oh, we've got an endorsement here for the power supply that we announced. I'm very happy to see that. Obviously, that embossed Cisco logo made all the difference there. So thank you very much. That is available to you now. So just reach out to your Meraki rep. He'll be very happy to sell it to you. Okay. Yeah, another question about upgrades here, which is, of course, great news. We're very happy to see people wanting to look at upgrading their Meraki equipment. The good news here is, whilst we don't have dedicated hardware upgrade programs in place on a continuous basis, our sales guys know that they want to be able to give you the best experience possible. So the best thing to do here is, if you are looking to upgrade, please pick up the phone, speak to your Meraki rep, explain to them what you're looking to do, and I know they'll do their absolute best for you. Okay, just bear with me one more moment, just having a look at the last questions. Do we require an individual license for each device? Yes, we do. So it's one license per device with Meraki, and of course that license does give you everything that you need to operate that device and have it fully supported 24/7, both from a feature perspective but also a hardware perspective as well. Question here about multiple WAN interfaces on MX65. Yeah, we're very happy to be starting to introduce this across the MX product line. We also did the same thing with the MX84 back at the end of last year. And of course, this is really because we have many customers now choosing to use VPN over internet as their prime connection out. And so you can use those connections for all kinds of different connection types, so things like MPLS, as Joe mentioned earlier. And the key point here is having two interfaces enables you to build in that physical redundancy there, and using features like the intelligent WAN functionality we've been adding, you're really going to be able to benefit with best performance and reliability combined. So there's a question here about single secure. So this is, I think, related to authentication of clients for wireless. The good news here is that no matter how many APs you put into a single network, you can have a single configuration for an SSID requiring all users to authenticate and connect securely. So that can be either to a Radius server or to a Meraki authentication server. So that's one that we operate in the cloud that you can authenticate users against as well. We have some other options for typically used for splash page access. So this would be things like our captive portal API. Also, Facebook check-in is available to you. You can make use of any products that use free Radius or LDAP technology for authenticating users. When is the Systems Manager update coming? It is already shipped, so you should be seeing those new capabilities already in Dashboard. If you're not, then you probably want to be having a conversation with us about your Systems Manager deployment, so please reach out to your contact. Okay, so a question here about Meraki support for multiple SSIDs. So a more generic question. We do support up to 15 SSIDs on the MR product line on MX. We support up to 4 SSIDs on there. So you're going to be able to, I mean, frankly, 4 is still more than we use ourselves at our own headquarters. So that should be more than adequate for most deployments. Okay, I've got a question here about wireless deployment with sort of somebody looking for some guidance on how many APs they would need for a given physical space and how many walls they have and so on. There really is no substitute for doing an on-site site server. We always recommend that, because think about how many times you hear people complaining about network performance. It's something we hear about all the time, and very often this is simply related to inadequate design at the outset. So there are some very good tools out there to help you with site surveys. Also, our partners are very happy to make sure you have a great experience with your Wi-Fi, and so we do strongly recommend that you do that before doing your Wi-Fi deployment. Okay, so I think that'll do it for the questions today. We've covered certainly most of what we've seen here. So thank you very much indeed for joining us on the webinar today. If you do have subsequent questions relating to the launch, then please do reach out to your Meraki contact. We'll be more than happy to get those answered for you. And just to recap also, the details of what we've announced in this webinar are available to you on a blog post that we did on the 9th of February. You'll find all the details you need in there. And we'll be adding more detailed blog posts over the coming days and weeks, which are related to this launch to get you into a little bit more of the full details. So thanks for taking some time out of your day today to join us on this webinar. And we will be back with another launch pretty soon, I think. It's going to be a busy year for Meraki, so we look forward to speaking to you on the next one. Thanks again, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.